Hi, my name is Brian Leonard, and I'm on the staff here at BVL. Um, BVL was created out of a tragedy. We lost our son about 2 years ago on what we're going to call poisoning now. Um, and probably a month after that, my son Joey decided that he wants to put together a gym in memory of Brian. And so it rapidly accelerated. Joey did all the heavy lifting. We just sat around and between my wife and my brother and family members, we got this thing rolling, and I really think that we're starting to be part of the community now. We have a lot of membership here. We're reaching out to a lot of groups. Our speaker series is on fire right now. So we're we're definitely getting much better. So I'd like to tell everybody the only reason we're still going is by help of the Holy Spirit. If it wasn't for the Holy Spirit, we would have crashed by now. And a perfect example is today, because how else would we have JoJo and Mario here, joining the family, if it wasn't for some intervention somewhere. So on that, JoJo.
Thanks, Brian. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out today. This is a really special place for me, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I'll tell you my experience, strength, and hope, and I'm just going to jump right in, okay? I used to think that if the outside of my life looked perfect, that the inside wouldn't matter. If I carried myself with a big smile, nobody would know what was truly going on. My husband's there. He just makes me emotional. I love him so much. Thanks for coming. But if you took a snapshot of my life just, maybe a few years before I decided to become sober, you would think that I had a lot, that I had it all. I traveled the world. I had a career. I rented a really cool loft in Streeterville, downtown Chicago. I hung out with glamorous friends and dated handsome guys who were almost all conveniently located out of town. But behind closed doors, I was kind of crumbling inside. I was fueled by fear, anger, depression, chaos, confusion, and hidden secrets that I thought I would die before telling anybody. But I realized now that I was running from my childhood and my upbringing and those secrets. They were just keeping me very, very sick. I was someone who became a master disguise. I wore a mask. I could shape shift and do whatever you liked. I could be who you liked. I was just very agreeable until you didn't suit my needs anymore, and I would run away. But mostly the mask I wore was to protect my secrets and from being found out, and like removing that mask to show my true self. I tried to perform my way into being loved by doing well in life, and that was newsflash, that didn't work. So that's why I'm standing here today. It didn't work, but I'll tell you, what did. But I want to touch on a little bit of my early life. I was born in the south suburbs. I have a mother, father, both doctors. They had a practice in the city and would commute from the south suburbs to the city. I have a brother 4 years older than me and two sisters from my father's previous marriage, or 25 years older than me. So I didn't have much of a connection there, but I loved them. They were part of my family, but I wasn't very close with them. And then I had surrounding family in the southern suburbs as well. And my parents were busy with their work, um, and I would spend a lot of time being taken care of by family members, by nannies that lived in the house, and um, you know, I was just kind of, I think back in that day in the 80s and 90s, like you're just kids running around doing your own thing. There's not much supervision. Adults did their thing, kids did their thing. And in my family, um, they really adopted like the European way of life. And my mother, her first language is Italian. Her mom is off the boat. My grandfather, her father, met my grandmother over in Italy during World War II. He was an American GI. Really beautiful love story. Um, One that I like, always wanted to live up to, have this grandiose idea of a relationship or love. And we drank a lot of wine in the family. When I was very young, it was very common to do so. And we had very big parties, big loud parties. And tables, I remember when I was a little girl, full of alcohol. People were smoking, having fun. It was very normal in my family. And I didn't know that for some, that was not normal. And um, part of my story deals with childhood sexual abuse, because in that time where the adults were separated from the children, in the lack of supervision, there were opportunities for things to happen where adults can, choose to harm those. And so I was abused by a member of my family, and I know that abuse spread throughout the family as well among the younger members in my generation. So that was my really big trauma, number one, as a kid. I had the secret immediately. I lied about it, and I was probably 5 or 6, very, very young. Um, and that really messed me up. I mean, how could it not? And also, my home life, uh, the chaos, dysfunction, and confusion also came from, my parent model that was, my parents that were, like, modeled relationships for me. I later learned that my father has and had his own addictions, and I know that my parents were very much into their own agenda, trying to fix, manage, and control that. So again, that left a lot of time for the kids to be off on their own, doing their own thing without supervision. I Shortly after, that trauma happened, I started to seek, like, drinking alcohol because it was common. I'm like, oh, I like this. And I would try to smoke cigarettes. I would steal them from the family. And at one point, I took leaves and paper towels and tried to smoke them because I thought that would make me feel better, which is silly. I think at the time, my brother found me and was like, "Would you just like a cigarette? I'll give one to you." So he did. Um, but I was always, as a young child, and ever since I got sober, trying to get out of myself. I didn't like who I was because I was harboring this big secret. And during this time too, my parents, not to harp on them, I love them, they have their own troubles, but in trying to fix what they were working through, they fell into a cult, which is riddled with celebrity. I'm not going to name the name of it, but you can probably figure it out, because I don't want anybody to come after me, but this is my experience. And I um, I can, like, because of that, it took up more of my parents' time, and I was more isolated. They decided to move downtown Chicago from the south suburbs so they could be at work, and then go to this place and spend more time there. And either I would go along and join in on whatever it was that we were doing at this cult, and or I was like, again, being watched by other people. You know, this is not a normal upbringing for a kid, and it's I realize now that having a routine, having stability is really important in life. I always thought it was boring, but it's not. It's good. It's good for the human condition, I think. And I didn't have that. And there was one point during this adolescent period that we moved to the city. I moved from a private Catholic school in the burbs to Chicago public school. And then at one point, we didn't sell our house out here. At one point, I was when we decided to move downtown, come back, sell our house, and then I was like commuting back downtown to school. So I was in 7th grade, living an hour south of the city, commuting in the morning to go to downtown Chicago to grade school with my parents in the rush hour, get dropped off at school, and then get picked up to go to this cult or and to go do whatever activity or something I was doing, and then either go home, and I'd be getting home at like 10 o'clock at night every night for a year. And that school year, I was really slipping. I was starting to, like, again, I was already stealing cigarettes and drinking wine here and there, but I was leaving school. We had off-campus lunch. I would walk around Gold Coast in Chicago and go to Oak Street, all the restaurants there. I'd walk in there and I'd go take a little thing of matches, because this was back in the day when you could smoke, and all the restaurants had their logos on a pack of matches that people collected. And they're like, "What? Where are you going with that?" I was like, "Oh, my parents are in the car. I'm just going to pick up some matches for my parents. They asked me to go." And I was going in the alley to smoke and probably drink at a friend's house. This is 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And so it was becoming noticed that I was kind of doing these things. And, my parents would talk to me about, like, don't drink, don't smoke. And I was like, well, you guys do it, so why can't I? And um, my my brother was off at a boarding school, not because he was bad. It was a good school. They had planned to send him there, and they ended up thinking that it would be good for me to go. So I went. I started to perform and do very well in sports, and I had a little bit of trouble with the grades going from public school to this rigorous boarding school. So I was like, I have a learning disability. I just was like, I should be tested. So I got tested. I was like, I need medication. I got on medication. It did improve my grades tremendously, but I did start to have a taste of what other substances felt like. And again, I would, in high school, perform, get good grades now, and on the weekends, or have this little bit of hidden rebellion, this rebellious nature, to kind of fuel, I think, the pain inside of me. And that kind of carried on into college. I did the same thing. I went to college for sports. I performed well, and then I would, also party very hard, which is not uncommon these days. But I think I took it to a step further. Now, dating in that in that time period, I was very scared to date, and anybody that I came to, like, develop a relationship with, if they were more normal and really liked me and weren't crazy and chaotic, I would run away, because that's all I knew growing up, was this big dysfunctional family. And I didn't want to be found out, so I always felt very alone, that I couldn't connect with somebody. I had to lie. I had to keep the mask up. And so on and so forth. That leads me, a little bit later after college into professional school. I got a career. I became a clinician in the same field as my parents, and same thing. I was performing, working, partying, and I was in the cycle of dating really, really not good people because I wasn't really putting my best self out there because I had these secrets and this history that I wasn't willing to face. I had my mask on the whole time. I wasn't ready to get real with myself and with anybody else. And I um, got into a very low point in my life. And again, I talked about that snapshot early into or before I got sober. You would think I had it all. Again, I was having fun dinners with my friends and traveling here and there, and I had all of it on paper, but inside, again, I was just crumbling and just living a lie. And I came to a point in my life where I just couldn't do it anymore. I was in that fancy loft in Streeterville, looking up at the ceiling, like, how can I end this? Like, what am I gonna do? And I don't know if that was, what that was. I think it was an act, or a divine intervention at that point. But I was like, you just gotta stop. If you want a family one day, if you want the boyfriend, if you want, something, you have to stick around and you have to change. So it just, nobody told me I needed to change. It just came within, and I just was so sick of myself that I it fueled me to make a change. So I'm in my late 20s at home, in my room, in my house, my loft, looking at the ceiling, deciding what to do. And I'm so grateful that I chose to just quit everything cold turkey. Quit dating, I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, I stopped using, and there was something in me that was like, you're worth being here. And it wasn't, but I think that now is a higher power, because I didn't have faith. I had such like a chaotic childhood. I didn't have anything to stand on, no foundation, no contact with a higher power to kind of lead me through dark times. And so I decided to give it up. I asked my parents to move home, and like I was taking a risk going back into chaos, going back, into their dysfunction. But I was selfishly thinking, okay, I'm going to get on my own 2 feet. I'm going to save more money. If I'm living with them, I can't drink, I can't use, I can't live the way I used to live. And so I did that. I went home. It was troublesome. I mean, but I had some fight within me a little bit more than like worrying about that. I kind of like was grateful. Thank you for letting me live here. I'm going to do my own thing. And I didn't tell them about my real plan, like what was going on. I would never tell them. And but finally it came out, and I was like, I've been doing a lot of drugs. I've been drinking a lot. I'm suicidal. I'm sad. I'm unhappy. I've had a lot of stuff happen in my childhood that I need you guys to know about. I removed the mask. And it was very freeing. It was uplifting for myself to like do that, because I was like, I realized I was really in this. I was really gonna just let it all out, and there was no turning back for me. So they were very supportive of me, and like, well, anything that you need, we'll help you with. And I was like, just give me my space. I was still very selfish at the time. I was like, let me figure it out. Thank you for letting me live here. But I had a really cool thing happen to me while I was like cold turkey, living at home, deciding to change. At the same moment, I had a phone call from a friend in high school that said, I just got out of rehab and I'm in Chicago. Do you want to come to a recovery meeting with me? And I was like, okay. I was like, sure, I'll support you. I'll do that. And I went with him, and I completely lost it. I broke down. I couldn't. They asked me to read a passage in some of their literature out loud. I couldn't even speak in front of anybody. I just broke down sobbing, and I was dry heaving. I was reading these sentences, and I think they just like took the book and gave it to the next person. And my friend had got up and he left the room for a moment, came back with 2 pamphlets, and was like, is this your problem or is this your problem? And I'm like, this one. And then he's like, okay. So after that, I just was crying. I think the whole hour of the meeting, and I went to dinner with him after and explained like what was going on. And he's like, I think you would really like this program I'm in. And he was in an intensive care outpatient program, you know, post rehab. And he's like, they work on a lot of things, and you might meet somebody. Whoa, that like really sounded the alarm for me. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'll think about it, and then I'll get back to you, you know. And so I didn't call him. He pestered me for like a month. Like, did you call? Did you call? And I was like, nope. And it was a Sunday afternoon. I sat on the bar stool at my parents' kitchen peninsula there, and I just decided to call, and I explained, you know, what was going on. And they're like, come here, we'll see you on Monday. I'm like, okay. I just started doing these things that were completely out of character. I was in control in the past, right? I did what I wanted. I made those decisions, but something else was driving me, and I know that is, you know, divine intervention and a higher power. And so I did everything they suggested. I, you know, got a therapist. I went to recovery meetings. And for the first time, I really used these resources because I was finally honest with myself. I was open, I was honest, I was willing to be a participant in life because I had a little bit of fight to like change. And my therapist said to me, you know, because I still wasn't fully convinced I had, you know, addiction to alcohol or the disease of alcoholism. And she told me, you know, you're just a garden variety alcoholic addict. You know, you're run of the mill. You're one of many. And I was flabbergasted. I was so insulted, but it just sat with me. I'm like, okay, I guess you're right, you know, and I ran with it. And I was like, all right, the mask is really off. Somebody told me, a clinician, it must be true. Like I'm this, and I accepted it and I surrendered completely. That was really pretty cool. And like I said, I did all the work. I even started dating somebody when you're not supposed to, I guess. You're supposed to keep focusing on yourself. But I was like, I'm healthy enough. I'll do it. and you know, that was like one of the first times in my life that I didn't fully like melt myself into the other person. I was building a foundation on my own 2 feet, and I could make my own decisions, and I could, you know, just see what was going to be my future, or see like, is this working for me? And I could voice what I wanted, what I needed. And it wasn't working for me because there was stuff this guy needed to work out. He was also sober, working on himself. But I saw that there wasn't any action behind that. And I was like, hey, this is the healthiest, you know, at the time, like a point in my life when it came to relationships. I was like, this isn't working for me. I wish you the best. I love you, but I love me more at this point. And so I ended it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be alone. I'm 31. I'm going to do what any logical, sober 31-year-old woman would do. And I got a dog. I got a little puppy. And so I put all my effort into her. Her name's Coco. She's little angel. And I was okay with myself at this point after the surrender, taking the mask off, doing what was suggested, finding a higher power, learning that these feelings that I was having as my whole life are normal feelings. I was just trying to survive. I dropped the shame for the most part. Still working on a lot of that. Things come up. It's not perfect, but I got the dog, and then I was like, okay with being single. I'm going to focus on my puppy. And then I got introduced by, I was introduced to my now husband. And I was like very afraid to tell him I was sober because I knew he wasn't sober. He was a normie or normal human walking around the planet. And I just kind of was like, at this point, what do I have to lose? I just had the mask still off. I told him everything that was going on. And I was like our second date, and I was like, listen, I got to tell you something. I think I made some joke, and I was like, nope, but really, I don't drink alcohol, and I don't, I live this type of way. And, he paused. He's very stoic. And he's like, did you have a problem with it? I was like, yes, yeah. And he was like, okay, you want to make pizzas on Friday? And so it was like nothing, he just like didn't let that hold him back. He didn't judge me for that. And that was a very beautiful moment in my life because I could, that was a secret that I could have carried. And having had so many secrets in my life, being so fearful to share these things, really, it was a frightening thing to do, but it was an intimate moment very early on in our relationship. And so now as it appears, I got the guy after looking at myself, looking what I needed to do, and I continue to try to work on our relationship every day, on my relationship with my higher power. But I know that now that I'm living a sober life and in recovery, I have resources and tools and things I can rely upon that the drink and the drug used to fulfill. And I don't need that anymore. It's a really, really miraculous thing, to be honest. I do want to touch on how I have come to know BVL in the gym. When I started dating my husband, we talk about what hobbies you do, so on and so forth. And I shared about my family. I said, oh, my brother, he boxed in college, and he's like, oh, I box too. So I was like, okay, this guy, if you can get hit in the face, there's something about you. You're a really stand-up kind of guy, and continue to stand in that ring and get hit after hit on keeping your hands up. So I love that connection. And my husband and I have been married, almost 5 years now. But he early on, he's like, you need to meet my friend Brian. And he told me about the Mercy Home and the family and the boxing connection. And I'm truly sorry I never got to meet him. He was very special to my husband. And all of you mean a lot to him, I know. But in tragedy comes so much beauty. Because this place, this gym, helps so many people that aren't just working out. I'm a part of a recovery group on Sundays here at 3 o'clock. It's a women's group. And I've seen women come in this door just broken, tattered, beaten, bloodied, and pulp, just beaten to a pulp. And they can change their life like I did. And so I just want to really thank the gym and Brian and all of you for allowing me to be a part of this and to continue to pass the message on to other women. And the platform that you're using this for is really beautiful. I'm meeting some of my really close friends here, and when we're doing that together, it's very special. So again, I thank you for that. As you know, we close our time here today. I want you to look around the room. All of us are just human, and we all have emotions and things that we could put the mask up and hide behind. Some of us suffered great loss due to this addiction and disease, and some of us just want to find a boyfriend. But the truth is, at some point we've all tried to perform and keep that mask up and try to fit the mold of who we think we should be and whatever. But we're all looking or seeking something to make us feel better, or finding a savior in someone or something. But for me, I know that didn't work out. And I had to kind of rely on something greater than myself. The miracle of recovery, of faith, is that you don't have to wear that mask anymore. You don't need somebody to save you. Your true self is waiting for you to drop the mask and surrender. I would say stop fighting, but this is a boxing gym. You want to keep fighting. But I will say, maybe fight for yourself to let the secrets come out, take the mask off, be a part of, and let a higher power do the heavy lifting for you. You're not alone. And I would like to thank everyone for coming and today, for your time, hearing a little bit about me and my story, and for BVL for the space and the opportunity to share my experience, strength, and hope. So thank you all.